Roni Robinson.
BBC Radio Sheffield.
Time now for a special programme on BBC Radio Sheffield. I'm Roni Robinson at the New York Stadium with a special debate ahead of the Rotherham By Election. We're in the boardroom at the New York Stadium where the decisions at Rotherham United are made, and on Thursday the people of Rotherham will make their own decisions about their new MP. The old one, Dennis McShane, dubbed Dennis McShane by some resigned because he'd fiddled his expenses, and Rotherham's off to the ballot box. We've invited all the 11 candidates in this election to join us. There are now 9. The Labour candidate pulled out 6 hours before we recorded the debate. Their candidate is Sarah Champion. Her office told us this, read by James Vincent, our political correspondent.
A Labour spokesman told us that with less than 72 hours before the polls open in what's been an extremely short campaign, Sarah Champion's top priority is meeting face-to-face with as many Rotherham people as possible. People are more likely to be at home around tea time when this programme is being recorded, and it is important that people meet Sarah directly on the doorsteps during this time. Sarah took part in the BBC Sunday Politics TV debate and has been available for interviews with various local and national media organisations almost every day of the campaign to date. She has given interviews today and will continue to do so every day between now and polling day. Sarah Champion is offering a fresh start to win the support of Rotherham people.
Thank you. And then there were 10. We began this meeting a few moments ago, and as we started, Ralph Dyson from the Trade Unionist and Socialists Against the Cuts, Tusk, candidate standing at this election, protested that he didn't want to take part in a meeting that included one of the other candidates here, and after a slight scuffle, they left. So the meeting resumed, and that's the situation we're at now, 9 out of the 11. OK, on BBC Radio Sheffield, then we turn to this rather special election conversation. I'm going to start by meeting a few of the candidates before we go to the opening topic, and I'd like first of all to introduce you to Simon Wilson, the Conservative candidate. And I suppose my question, Simon Wilson, would simply be, the Tories obviously can't win in Rotherham, why are you bothering?
Thank you for that glowing introduction, Roni. Wouldn't be here if we didn't think we could win. Rotherham has had 80 years of a Labour MP, it's had 13 years of Labour government, and it's had a Labour council for the last 38 years. And I think the one thing that the 9 remaining of us will agree on is that Rotherham deserves a lot better than it's had from its Labour Party. That's why I'm here.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce you to the Liberal Democrat candidate, Michael Beckett's the man selected for that one. The Liberal Democrat Party lost their deposit in the Barnsley by-election. They came last in the Police Commissioner election round here. Why are you bothering, Michael Beckett, and do you think you're likely to keep your deposit this time?
I think the Liberal Democrats will do better here than we did in Barnsley, and I think we can have a real effort to win. It's about making a positive difference to Rotherham, and as Simon said, Labour's legacy of let down Rotherham and leaving it with very little. It's certainly been neglected for far too long.
Thank you. The third of the candidates I'd like to introduce you to is Jane Collins, the UKIP candidate here. Jane Collins, the Prime Minister described your party as consisting of closet racists, fruitcakes and loonies. Which are you?
Well, I think what I'll do is I'll leave you to make that decision after this evening. But we're here because I think Rotherham needs a fresh, honest-faced politics. People are fed up of the tired old politics between modern Conservative and New Labour fighting with each other while the factories are closing, kids' futures are crumbling. It's time for change, and Rotherham needs change.
How do you feel about your chances in this election, given all the shenanigans over the weekend about the fostering? You're going to win.
You call children being taken away from
no,
foster
I'm asking
parent
about
shenanigans?
I'm asking about the shenanigans in the press and all the conversations and all the international discussion all over the place about the fostering story. Does it make the UKIP chance of winning the election any greater? That's my question.
We've obviously had quite a lot of publicity about the children being taken away. But I must point out, those children have been taken away in the last 10 days. And I actually knew nothing of it until last week, until I was asked to go and see the foster parents. So this isn't something that we've actually done for the by-election, report and then let it go to press.
Well, I didn't say that. I asked you what difference you thought it would make.
I think it will make a bit of a difference, but we've got some good policies and people will vote on our policies.
Thank you. That's 3 of our candidates. Can we have a round of applause? 9 out of the 11 candidates are here. Here's the opening issue I'd like to raise at this discussion here in Rotherham about that fostering issue, what I call shenanigans. I didn't intend to diminish what had happened. It's appalling. Should the fostering issue have anything to do with how Rotherham votes on Thursday? Michael Beckett for the Liberal Democrats.
In terms of the way people vote, I think Labour haven't shown clear leadership and certainly haven't resolved issues. And I find it very difficult because obviously issues of confidentiality must be kept confidential, and what we don't know, and whether there is things we don't know or not, Labour have either confirmed or denied. So there is a very difficult thing here because Labour haven't, I think, clarified anything, and obviously Labour's not here to tell us what's going on. I would ask Sarah Champion and direct it to her on the grounds that, as Labour's representative, she would know what's happening, but obviously she doesn't because she's not here.
Thank you. Simon Wilson, Conservative candidate. Should this be an issue in the Rotherham by-election?
I think the bigger issue, Roni, is that there are, for me, serious issues with Rotherham Council social services safeguarding policy. We've had a number of events in the last few years that point to this council not being able to properly look after the people in its care.
Covering it up.
Will it become an issue in this election? I'm sure it will be, but I think there's a bigger issue at play here, which is why I applaud the investigation that's been launched by the Education Secretary. As I was saying before I was interrupted, I'm pleased that the government is taking this seriously and is launching its own investigation. The statement that was put out by Rotherham Council's leader earlier on today put us nowhere further forward at all.
Investigating themselves.
I think it's high time that there was a root and branch investigation by the highest levels of government into how Rotherham Social Services conducts itself, looks after the people in its care.
And to clarify the question, is it an issue at this election? Does it make any difference to who gets elected MP on Thursday, and should it?
Yes, it will make a difference.
Jane Collins for UKIP.
The same question?
Indeed, the same question.
Same question.
Should it make a difference?
I think it might make a difference in the fact that we brought it to the fore and they felt they could tell us about the problem. But they were members of our parties, so they thought what they needed to do first was actually make us aware of what the accusations were.
Can I just hold it a second? The question from the floor. Can we get a mic to that question?
Why take a professional issue to the public? Why not deal with it in the council?
They tried to deal with it in the council and they had doors shut on them and the council did their usual thing.
Is this addressing the children's needs? Having this in the public? I don't believe it is.
I don't.
Thank you.
Those 3 children.
Thank you.
The children's not actually being exposed in any way to the public. The only thing that's been exposed in the newspapers is the fascist attitude of the council towards a political party.
Marlene Guest for the BNP. What's your view? Should the fostering issue be part of the reason why we vote on Thursday and how we vote?
Well, it should, because Rotherham hid grooming for 10 years, and it didn't matter that our kids were groomed. They didn't give a toss about that. But as soon as 3 kids aren't getting their dose of multiculturalism, we're all up in arms. I think it's appalling, and I think it should be an issue. You can't cover things up like this.
Yvonne Ridley for Respect.
Rotherham Council is known as the Ministry of Fear for many different reasons. And the grooming issue is a major issue that the Respect Party has found campaigning on the doorstep. The fostering issue, 3 children have been ripped away from a loving home just before Christmas. It's absolutely disgraceful. There needs to be a whole inquiry into the way that the council is running its department, and we have consistently asked that there be a major inquiry into that particular department and a wider inquiry into the meddling from so-called elected members of the council. And while we're, on with it, we are the second favourite, and now that Sarah Champion is a no-show, I'm sure that will be reflected and we will be the favourite party to win in Rotherham, because Rotherham needs respect. The parents of those children need respect, and this council has not shown any respect to any of its voters. The total disregard of Labour. I've got tweets here from Labour canvassers who have joked about the grooming situation in Rotherham, and it is absolutely obscene. You can cough as much as you want, madam, but it is absolutely disgraceful that Labour canvassers have been tweeting, joking about this situation.
Yvonne Ridley. David Wagush, you were the English Democrats. Do you think the fostering issue specifically should have anything to do with the way Rotherham people vote this week?
I think it's actually simple. It shows the point really about how English people are treated with contempt, because they were considered unacceptable simply because they weren't sufficiently multicultural. We are an anti-discrimination party that actually believes that we should have equality for all the people of England, and also all English citizens and all British citizens. At the moment, the other main parties think we are worth less than Scots, Welsh, Northern Irish, which is why they even have a formula for it called the Barnett formula.
Does that have any connection with the fostering issue, and why this might, you think, be an issue on which we should decide how we vote on Thursday?
It does actually, yes, because it's political correctness gone mad. And in this respect, I have every sympathy for UKIP, because membership of a perfectly legal, non-racist Democratic Party, such as ourselves for that matter, which has a very similar immigration policy to UKIP, should not actually bar one from actually providing a loving home for children. The children are what matter.
Thank you. Thank you. Take a comment or two from the other candidates. Simon Copley, the independent candidate.
I think there's a wider issue here. It was mentioned earlier that politicians of the three main parties are out of touch with ordinary people. I think it goes deeper than that. I think the institutions that run our society are actually out of touch with what ordinary people feel. We need to get more power back to local communities sorting out their own issues.
Thank you.
That's why I'm running as a local candidate.
I have a local question later on, indeed. I'm asking about the fostering question. There's a contribution from the back of the room here.
I just can't believe that the English Democrat person has just come out with that comment that they believe in equality, just like the Doncaster mayor banned the gay parade in Doncaster. You know, I just cannot believe that he does that sort of thing. You know, absolutely. And can I just also say that the UKIP, talking about their concerns, a lot of people don't realise that UKIP, 3 weeks after the massive march in London against the cuts, arranged another march. They want more cuts, and that's the sort of thing they don't tell you on the manifesto.
OK, I'm going to stick to the fostering question at the moment. Are there any more contributions from the floor on whether, and it's this specific question, on this by-election, there's more publicity about this than almost anything else, and the story hasn't finished yet. The fostering, should the people of Rotherham decide how they vote on Thursday according to a story about fostering?
It's the children's interest, isn't it? Fostering adoption, isn't it the children's interest? So they were placed apparently with a family.
I suppose I have to hand the question back to Jane Collins, the UKIP candidate here. It's a UKIP family. The parents were members of UKIP.
Right, this family have been fostering for 7 years. They're not racist. UKIP policies are not based on colour, creed or religion. They're based on the fact that we are worried about an open-door immigration policy that puts pressure on the country with its services and everything else. So what I'm saying is these people are not racist. They're a kind, loving family. I could actually tell you the things that they've actually done in their life, their careers. They've been professional people.
I think we must move on. You've answered the point that was made from the floor. Thank you. Gentleman there from the floor.
If Rotherham Borough Council were doing the job properly, there wouldn't need to be any credence to this as a matter of voters' interest.
Do you think it is a matter on Thursday?
It is, definitely.
Because one of these people, plus the two absentees, will be MP come Friday morning. Should their position about the fostering be relevant to how you vote?
Well, it is relevant.
Is it? Thank you. OK, thank you very much indeed for that. A round of applause, I think, as we moved on to the second of our candidates. I'd like to introduce you to the candidate for the English Defence League, Clint Bristow, who's sitting with us here. Clint Bristow, can I ask you with the EDL, were you at the Rotherham rally yourself recently?
Yes, I was. Yes, I organised that one.
Did you? And
never been a fascist in my life.
Let me put that to you. It's come from the floor, that question. Are you a fascist? I'll ask you that one.
Never been a fascist in my life.
Are you a racist?
I'm not a racist, no.
What do you believe about race?
Believe about race? Everyone's got the same equal rights as everybody else. It's when militant Islamic extremists come in here preaching their hate on our streets, disrespecting our armed forces, burning our poppies on Armistice Day. It's these people, along with closer to home in Rotherham, these militant Islamic extremists grooming our children. It's about children. Of course white people do it. But what's the 1% population of Rotherham is a Muslim community. How come such a small population of Rotherham caused so much trouble and heartache for the whole of Rotherham?
But just to clarify, you wouldn't describe yourself as a racist when you were giving an account of your political views?
I'm not racist, no.
Thank you. And is it true you've got an ASBO?
No, it's not true I've got an ASBO.
Could you explain why people think you have an ASBO after trouble in London in 2011?
It's a crash bow I've got.
Would you tell
Not
us
an
what
ASBO.
that is and how it's different?
A crash bow is a crime-related ASBO.
What does that mean?
I was arrested, found guilty, sentenced, and I've got restrictions.
What did you do, Mr. Bristow?
I was in London for a demonstration, and I protected a group of people that was being attacked by militant Islamic extremists, and I was arrested and charged for that.
Do you think you should have done it?
Protecting innocent people, definitely.
Thank you. That's the fourth of our candidates, and we'll move on to our second issue, really, here. This is a broadcast coming to you from Rotherham, from the New York Stadium. James Vincent is our political reporter. James Vincent, what do you make of it so far?
Oh, it's fairly feisty, isn't it, Roni? I think it always was going to be. I think the key issues you've touched on there already, the fostering row has been key, grooming in Rotherham is key, and I guess it's a question about what the council does. Does it affect on how we choose our MP in Rotherham? Can an MP do anything about what the council does? I suppose that's the fundamental question, isn't it?
Thank you very much, James. BBC Radio Sheffield live in Rotherham, this big debate, at which 9 of the 11 candidates are present for it. The Labour candidate decided she couldn't come, she's out canvassing, and the candidate from the Trade Union Socialists Against Cuts did come, made some speeches and left. So there are now, and there still are on the last count, 9 candidates ready. We move on to the second issue, perhaps contentious, I don't know. The economic state of Rotherham, the unemployment and the rest of it. Rotherham, one of the biggest unemployment black spots in the country, especially for young people. The jobs, of course, the steel-making loss of 160 jobs, the future fate of Maltby Pit, 500 jobs. What would you do when you're an MP on Friday? What would you do differently from the way the rest are doing that? Can I start with the Conservative candidate? Actually, I started Simon Wilson with you last time. I'll start, if I may, Jen Collins with you from UKIP.
Well, to create employment, you've got to help business. So if you've got small businesses, medium businesses, you've got to try and help them, release them from the overtaxation, red tape legislation, which is obviously inflicted on them from the European Union. So you've got to promote business. You've got to make the town centre more attractive, more accessible, better parking. And I think it would help as well if if younger people and could work, or even anybody could work up to £11,500 minimum wage before they're taxed. So there's all sorts of different things that you can do to help enterprise. The thing with this country is that we tend to sort of knock people who are successful. I think you have to encourage business people, remove restrictions on them, let them flourish, and then you create employment.
Thank you. Simon Wilson, the Conservative candidate.
I think the first thing to point out, Ronig, is the state of the economy that was inherited by the Conservative Liberal coalition government in 2010 was the worst in Western Europe. It was the worst of any developed country. We're paying £125 million a day in interest payments to service Labour's debt, which was unsustainable. That's the position we started with 2.5 years ago. The government has managed to cut 25% of the deficit. The economy is now beginning to grow again, albeit very slowly. There are a lot of extremely disappointing things that have gone on in the economy locally, Tata Steel's announcement being just the latest in those. I do, however, find it really encouraging that things like the Rolls-Royce Advanced Manufacturing Plant is creating 150 jobs, and only today a company called AES Seal has suggested it could double its workforce by another 300 employees in the near future. So there are encouraging signs in Rotherham. An awful lot more needs to be done, which is why I think it's vitally important that this town returns a Conservative MP.
Thank you.
Who's the kind of person that can put some effort into getting this town
Michael
back where
Beckett,
it
what
deserves
should
to
the
be.
Liberal Democrats do? What would you do differently about the unemployment and the economics around here?
The Liberal Democrats have already made a commitment to remove people who earn £10,000 a year out of income tax, making it cheaper to employ them, making it more easy to to live. And with that, you've got more people coming off of benefits into work. And I think by increasing employment and increasing job creation, both of these will help the economy. I think also you need to look at supporting firms so that they can come and move to Rotherham over other places, which means I think looking at infrastructure and helping Rotherham be on the map, really. I think it's been isolationist a bit, with Labour leaving it to just neglect.
Thank you. From the floor, James Vincent's here with the microphone. This is BBC Radio Sheffield, coming to you from Rotherham, from the by-election special here. 9 out of the 11 candidates, a small audience, and a rather feisty one, as James said too.
The Conservative government closed down all the pits in the area. They closed down the steelworks in the area. Rotherham has been on its knees ever since, and it's getting worse.
And again from the floor. Gentleman here, James.
Well, they've mentioned about raising the income tax threshold, so 10,000 and 11,500, but that's a national level, not to actually help Rotherham at the moment.
Thank you. And more from the floor, gentleman here.
People in our communities are suffering due to the deep cuts by this condemned government. We've seen young people have the misery of unemployment at a time when they're doing this work till you drop, having to extend their retirement age to 67, going back to his grandparents' day. Do you agree with the austerity measures or an alternative? Please explain your
That goes back to Simon Wilson, the Conservative, I think, over here.
Again, to repeat, the state of the economy that we inherited 2.5 years ago is unsustainable. People have to realise and accept that the debt that Labour got us into cannot continue. We have to... We spend £44 billion a year servicing debt. That's money that should be spent.
Thank you. Thank you. Yvonne Ridley, for respect, please.
Yes, the first thing I would do if I'm elected MP for Rotherham is ban the EDL and the BNP from marching, because I went through the market traders. You cost them, Clint Bristow, you cost those market traders and the town businesses hundreds of thousands of pounds. Shut up, I've listened to you, now you listen to me.
But his question is, where is freedom of speech?
Well, all right then.
That was his question.
Okay. Okay. Why is it that... we respect, and a lot of other groups in London were able to stop and ban the EDL from marching in Tower Hamlets. It's okay in London, but you can have all of these Nazi scum up here. Now let's remember that Hitler was democratically elected.
Okay, I'm going to move on with a question. It was a question about the economics. I'm going to ask Jane Collins to respond.
Can we go back to the economics? Because we're talking about austerity measures and we're talking about cuts, but the problem you've got is the cuts come in the wrong place. They come on the front line. So yes, we all realise that things have to change and we do have to all tighten our belt, but let's get rid of middle management, let's get rid of non-jobs and keep our frontline services. That's the main thing.
Thank you. Molling Guest for the BNP.
You can produce hundreds of thousands of jobs, but if you leave the borders open and immigrants come in, it's just a waste of time, like it was last time. It's got to be British jobs for British workers, and if we don't do that...
The immigrants that came in the 50s.
We're not talking about the 50s, we're in the 2012.
Yeah, well, don't talk about immigrants, because my father was an immigrant. Into this time. He was a doctor, my mother was a nurse, she was a Rotherhamite.
Area.
I'm not.
Now then.
And we haven't got any issues with that.
Don't talk to me about my mother and father.
I've never mentioned your mother and father.
You're talking about immigrants. You're talking about immigrants. I've finished my knitting. Thank you very much.
BBC Radio Sheffield coming to you live from Rotherham. The big debate getting more feisty. Woman there, please.
I'm an NHS worker at Rotherham Hospital. 2 or 3 weeks ago it was announced that there would be 750 jobs to go out of a workforce of over 3,000. So there's going to be about a quarter. How we can possibly manage with less staff than we've got at the moment. Nobody seems to be bothered about that here. Nobody's mentioned the health service, Rotherham Hospital. So this is going to have a big impact on Rotherham, isn't it, on the economy, if there's going to be another 800 people made redundant. I just wondered what our candidates think about Rotherham Hospital, if you know anything about it.
Yes, indeed. So there's the direct question. What do you think about Rotherham Hospital, if you know anything about it? Would you like to very quickly go right round them all all, please, Peter, starting at this end, with Paul Dixon, the independent candidate. It'll have to be a single sentence each, please.
Well, in relation to the Rotherham Hospital, obviously, I'm not really sure. I don't know an awful lot about
Simon
that.
Copley.
But if I could just
Simon Copley.
OK, I think the Conservatives have set up a market system which separates hospitals. We need a centralised national health service.
David Wildgoose for the English Democrats.
England is suffering twice the cuts that are taking place in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. As usual, the British state does not care for England, and we need a party to stand up for England.
Thank you. The Liberal Democrat position for Michael Beckett.
I think we need to stand up for the NHS. Having worked for the health service myself, it's something I feel very passionate about, and I do think that we should start by cutting the wages of the people at the top, and they should lead by example.
Clint Bristow for the English Defence League. Clint Bristow.
If we stop borrowing so much money and giving it away in so-called charity to foreign aid, we can have a lot of that money to spend on this NHS system.
Go straight through to Marlene Guest.
Stop privatising the National Health Service.
Jane Collins for UKIP.
Yeah, they're proposing another £50 million cuts as well, and I'd like to know if Brian James is worried about that with his package and his large pension. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying with his package.
Thank you, Marlene Guest for the...
When I arrived in Rotherham, I called for the resignation of this man who was earning £250,000 a year and overseeing an absolute disaster.
Thank you. And Simon Wilson.
Yeah, under the Conservative government, we've increased doctors, dentists and midwives, and will continue to protect.
Thank you. That's the
frontline
answer to your
services.
question. What do they know about Rotherham Hospital and what they want to do about it? Round of applause for the question. And the first half of this rather special by-election special taking place in the New York Stadium in Rotherham. We'll come back to it after the travel.
Travel update. BBC Radio Sheffield.
Traffic is queuing on the M1 if you are going to be heading southbound from 31 at Sheffield to the Woodall services. Watch out for some delays. It's because of an earlier accident. 2 cars involved there. All the lanes have been reopened, but the congestion's still going back to Junction 1 at Bramley of the M18 and on the M1 itself to Junction 33 at Catcliffe. The northbound side of the M1 is slow from 32 at Thurcroft to 33 at Catcliffe. At Conisbrough, car lanes closed off because of the flooding. This is first of many routes I'm going to tell you about now. Between Edlington Lane and Common Lane by the Golf Club. At Sprotborough, Nursery Lane's closed off at Mill Lane. At Stainton, Scotch Spring Lane closed off between Tickhill Road and Old Scotch Spring Lane. And at Barnby Dun, Thorpe Banks closed off between Fordstead Lane and Marsh Road, and Fordstead Lane closed at Marsh Lane. Water Lane at Stainforth is closed. That's Bridge Hill because of the flooding between Silver Street and Fish Lake Nab. If you're heading through Tick Hill, Wilsick Lane's closed off between Peastack Lane and Longgate at Wadworth. If you're going to be travelling through Scoresby, traffic is looking very slow moving on York Road inbound at Barnsley Road and congested through Doncaster on York Road at the St Mary's roundabout. If you are heading on the trains, there's a replacement bus service running today on First Transpennine Express between Doncaster and Sheffield because of flooding at Conisbrough. It's affecting Northern Rail between Doncaster and Swinton as well. And if you spot anything else, call us on the Jam Dodger line 0114 256 1212. That's the latest. I'm Helen Wakefield.
BBC Radio Sheffield.
BBC Radio Sheffield, that I'm Ronnie at the by-election special at the New York Stadium in Rotherham, which is getting feisty, and we move on to introduce you to one or two of the other candidates and then a further issue to discuss. I'd like to introduce you to the English Democrat candidate, David Wildgoose, and I suppose, David Wildgoose, I'd like to ask you, supposing I'm right-wing, supposing I'm very right-wing, who should I vote for?
I've no idea. I'm only interested in ordinary English people. That's all the people, because we say we are not left, not right, just English. We are looking not for the centre ground, we're looking for the common ground, the ground that we all share. We all live in England, we all share the English language, we all share English common law, not Sharia law, notice, but English common law.
But you define yourself not as a right-wing candidate, not as a right-wing party?
Of course not. The party makes a point of saying we actually have a slogan, not left, not right, just English. That's all we declare. That's all we declare ourselves to be.
Thank you. Marlene Guest, the BNP. I'm a right-winger. Who should I give my vote for?
Well, we might be the far right, but we're not far wrong. And I think you should vote for us.
And would you define yourself as being far right?
Yes, I would. I've always been honest and said what I thought was
Are you
right.
the farthest right in this room today?
I'm the farthest right that admits it. I'm the farthest right that admits it.
And if I were to put the question to you, which I did put to Mr Bristow, are you a racist?
No.
Are you a fascist?
No.
You're not very far right then, are you?
Depends what you call the far right. I'm not a fascist or a racist. I'm sticking up for us because nobody else seems to be.
Thank you. In terms of BBC neutrality, now I'm very far left, and I'm going to speak to Yvonne Ridley. You're the most far left candidate here, aren't you? Right. Yvonne, would you like to? Yvonne Ridley, the call from the back was you're far right, you're fascist. Can you untangle the politics of respect?
Well, of course I can. It's very, very simple. Respect represents old-style Labour, old-style socialism, where we care for people from the cradle to the grave. And that is what respect represents, which is why we are called Respect. And Rotherham needs respect.
And would it be true to say that with all that respect comes George Galloway, and that in some senses, some people might say that you're a one-trick party, and that one trick is George Galloway?
Well, the word respect stands for education, socialism, environment. We're far from a one-trick pony. As I said, we are old-style Labour, the sort of Labour that... I didn't work down the pits, but I've got coal dust coursing through my veins. I come from the coalfields of Durham and from Concert Steelworks. I know about the hardships of being in steel. And
from Rotherham, my only question.
I'm not from Rotherham, but I'm not playing postcode politics with you. The reality is, I'm a northerner. I've been a trade unionist all my life. Sarah Champion joined the trade union 3 weeks ago. She joined Labour last year. I was a Labour member from 17. Labour left me. I didn't leave
Thank you
Labour.
very much indeed. Thank you. It's BBC Radio Sheffield. We're talking to all the candidates here. Actually, we're talking to 9 of the 11 candidates. 2 of them have walked out, and now a member of the audience is walking out. OK, that's logged as well. We've got, and people can feel free to leave, I should say. It's a democratic meeting. So there we are. I'd like to ask you about the question as the next issue. I'd like to ask you a question really, which I suppose is about community harmony or antisocial behaviour. What kind of Rotherham you want really, and what you might do differently to get a better, a more integrated society in Rotherham. Sort of general question really about how you might improve Rotherham and make it a happier, more integrated place. Who's going to start for us on this one? Perhaps Jane Collins, the UKIP candidate, would.
Well, I think that comes straight back to Rotherham Council and the way it treats its constituents. Because I don't think you're going to get a happy society when you've got people who've actually rung me up and spoken to me and told me some of their problems, but they don't actually ring the council up because they're frightened of victimisation. So you won't have a happy community until you actually sort the rot out that's in that council.
How do you make it a happier and a better place? What's the Liberal Democrats stand on this?
Well, having been a Citizens Advice Bureau manager and spent my time helping people with problems, I think I can improve the efficiency of the MP's job in trying to get people through things. And certainly apprenticeships and helping children get the education they need so they can have a real start in life and really improve Rotherham for the future. And I do think they've been let down by Labour for a number of years, which is probably why there's so much neglect and things that have been swept under the carpet that really do need to be addressed and, I think, investigated. I really do think that there needs to be more attention on Rotherham and getting things sorted.
Thank you. And Simon Wilson, the Conservative.
A couple of answers, really, I think, Roni. We need to give everybody in Rotherham better opportunity. That starts with the pupil premium, which helps the most disadvantaged children in our society, for which the Conservatives are spending £3 million a year in Rotherham schools, right the way through to helping this society, this economy be more prosperous, giving opportunity for much more people than have currently. That will in turn give us a putting my teeth back in, a more harmonious society.
A more harmonious Rotherham. From the other candidates, Simon Copley, do you want to offer your thoughts here?
I think if we wait for Rotherham Council to bring a more harmonious society, we'll be here till the cows come home. It's up to local communities to find the solutions themselves. That's why we need to invest in the third sector. We need to give more support to faith organisations and community organisations. I am the only candidate in this election who has actually come up with a practical idea for tackling sex grooming, rather than blaming it on either the Muslim community or on the Labour Council or on the police. It's on my website, Simon Copley, a moderate alternative. Go there and look at it. I'm the only one offering a practical alternative, because I actually live in the Rotherham Borough. I'm one of the only 2 local candidates in this election.
Thanks very much.
We can't wait for...
Simon Copley, thank you very much. David Wildgoose, you want to contribute about how to make a better, more
harmonious... Well, born and brought up in Rotherham, as myself, of course. I actually believe we should be celebrating what we have in common rather than emphasising where we are different, which is why I oppose multiculturalism. And I actually think that by actually coming together as a community, what we share... And that is what we actually need to do.
What do you mean when you say you oppose multiculturalism?
Exactly what I've just said.
Yeah, what does it mean?
Multiculturalism is all about ghettoisation and actually looking at where people are different.
In practical terms, what would you do differently in Rotherham?
Where they are the same.
In practical terms, what would you do differently in Rotherham?
Well, in Rotherham's case, we just had an example brought up about the child grooming and so on. What about a law that is actually colourblind and actually says, this is right, this is wrong, rather than a case of, oh, actually, we've got to think about community relations. There should be one community in Rotherham, the Rotherham community. And that's why I oppose multiculturalism. One community, one people, one law, equal to all.
Marlene Quest from the BNP. What's your reaction to the idea of a better, more integrated Rotherham?
Well, I think we've got 2 Rotherhams. We've got 2 Rotherhams. We've got the Asian part and the British part, and they don't integrate.
What would you do about it? What would you do about it?
Well, it's political correctness.
But what would you do about it?
Well, I would try and get people to integrate more, but they don't want to.
Would you send them all home, like once upon a time the BNP? Like once upon a time the BNP...
You can't send people home,
Indeed,
Ronnie.
but once upon a time the BNP said do that, didn't they?
Right, this is where they were born, most of them. You can't go sending people home. But you've got to get... They've sort of brought their culture with them. Now, in a lot of other countries, they say that you go to that country and you obey. America does. But when they come to Britain, we let people do as they like. And they don't conform to British customs and the things that we do in Britain. So this is why people get angry.
Simon Copley, I'm going to come to you in just a moment, but I would just wonder if anyone would like to take issue with this particular subject, anyone who's not spoken from the floor or would like to contribute to this one. Yes, indeed, Paul Dyes.
Polarisation is something you have to work hard on. The council has to work particularly hard to make sure there are no biases given out to any particular part of the community. If you don't educate people together, then they will obviously alienate. You cannot have polarisation. The more that takes place, the worse it actually gets. People must be able to be together in all sort of parts of society, in schools, in education, and they have to be taught nearly to live together.
Right, I'm going to move on, if I may, from that area. I'm going to bring back both Simon Copley and Paul Dixon, because I've not introduced you to our audience here, or indeed the audience at large listening to BBC Radio Sheffield, to this broadcast, which is coming to you from the New York Stadium at Rotherham, and it's the big by-election conversation. 9 out of the 11 candidates are still here. 1 member of the audience has left. But so far, we're doing OK. Can I ask you, I suppose, Simon Copley, if I might ask you, you're a reverend, aren't you?
I am.
What are you doing standing for Parliament? Why do you want to go among those irreverent people down in Parliament? Why don't you just get us to pray? Better pay.
Yeah. Well, Len Tingle said I haven't got a prayer, which is not true. I believe politics in Britain is completely bust, and Rotherham is the microcosm of that. I think political parties, we're ruled basically by an elite, whether it's red, blue, yellow, purple, whatever, which is totally out of touch with ordinary people. What we need, the political issues we face today are so complicated that party politics is too cumbersome, it's too corrupt, and it's too clumsy and partisan to deal with those problems. We need independent thinkers.
Simon, thank you. But we'd need to know before we voted for you. We'd need to have some clue as to which side you're on many issues. We haven't time to explore them all, and there's been a bit of contention about whether you could even talk about people being right or left wing. Are you right or left wing?
Okay. Somebody mentioned earlier that they're the most left wing person. My great grandfather was a founder member of the in the Independent Labour Party.
So you're very
in
left-wing.
Bradford. I am basically, like Yvonne, where the Labour Party used to be, defending ordinary people.
She's the Respect candidate. Are you more left-wing than Respect? Is that...
No, I'd say I'm probably about the same as
So
Respect.
we should give you
but
half a vote each.
Well, I'd probably differ with her on the
Paul Dixon,
Islam
with
issue.
due respect, we don't know who you are.
Yes.
Tell us who you are and what you represent.
Well, I'm standing as an independent, and I'm basically want to stand up on behalf of the working and middle class people in this country, and I'm very middle in my politics.
But
Again,
why
the
here?
three major parties in this country are not protecting the working and the middle class people. They're not protecting them against banks, against energy companies that are making profits year on year out in the middle of a recession, whilst energy prices keep going up. And they're not protecting them against the large multinationals. 25 to 35 billion pounds go missing out of this economy each year due to tax avoidance and tax evasion. And you're talking about investment in communities. 25 to 35 billion pounds would go one hell of a way to fixing a lot of the problems that are going on in this country. And it's just continually ignored because they... Hang on, just 2 seconds.
I can't hang on. We must be fair. We're counting the seconds. This is a democratic process. We work under the rules, I'm afraid. But I will ask you one more question. You believe it very passionately and you want it to be heard. Well, why are you telling us it in Rotherham?
Well, I came down to Rotherham because one of my other passions is I cannot stand the amount of greed that goes on in this country. And when I say greed, I talk about the large multinationals, but also the greed of the MPs that earn 2.5 times the national salary in this country and still have their noses in the trough looking for more money. They're letting down the working class and the middle class people in this country who pay their taxes on time and in full. We need... political parties to stand up for the working and middle class people of this country because they're getting ripped off left, right and centre.
So in
they're
a sense you're standing because Dennis McShane went under such circumstances?
Well, yes, that is probably why I've actually chosen Rotherham. But can I just add one thing? Well, I've actually decided to donate my first year's salary if I was elected as an MP to charitable causes in direct opposition to the greed that goes on.
Would you like me to ask the rest of the panel here if they'll do the same? OK, will you go around, Peter, with the microphone? The direct question: will you give your whole year's salary? Is it?
I won't give my whole year's. I'll give
just to get the. I'd like to get it clear first of all. Paul, that's what you're offering, isn't it?
Independents haven't had much of a chance to speak in this election, so please let us speak.
I'm going to let you speak in just a moment. I'm asking for the question again so that I can ask everybody else it. That's how we conduct things in Rotherham. Yes, please. The question.
Sorry, I didn't pose a question.
Well, I posed the question. What is your proposition? You're going to give your entire salary.
My proposition was in opposition to the greed that exists and the MPs.
You will give all your year's salary.
I give my first year's salary if I was elected to charitable causes.
Thank you. Simon Copley, would you?
I will give £20,000 of my salary each year to charity, to local charities in Rotherham.
David
and I invite the other 10
English
candidates who
Democrat,
lose to nominate them.
Seems I've started a bid here.
I will actually campaign for all the MPs to have proper working salary, not the complete troughing that we have right now.
We can't ask Sarah Champion, the Labour candidate. She's not here. The Liberal Democrat candidate, please.
It's already in all my leaflets that I'll take a cut because I don't believe that we should be paid as much as that as an MP. I think they've paid too much.
Clint Bristow, would you give your year's salary should you be elected?
No, 15% will go back into the community for local charities here in Rotherham.
Marlene, Marlene, guess what would you do with your salary?
I've got to keep some of it because I've got to live, Ronnie. But I've said I would send £100 back every week.
Jane
definitely.
Collins, for UKIP.
Right, well, I'm going to be a little bit more realistic. It's very easy to say these things if you won't get elected.
But you think you're going to get elected, so what will you do?
No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the truth. If I got elected, then I wouldn't give all my salary back to Rotherham in the first year. You possibly could. You just couldn't do that because you know why? You couldn't do your job. Simple and as that. So yes, I will give a percentage of my salary back, but I certainly wouldn't give it all back because I'd want to do my job as an MP.
Let's not forget why this by-election was called in the first place. And what I have said from day one is that I will not claim any personal expenses.
Yvonne Ridley for Respect, that was. And this is Simon Wilson, the last of our 9 candidates who are here.
Yeah, I've pledged that I will... sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I've pledged that I will display every month what expenses I claim on behalf of doing this job.
Right, but you wouldn't give any of the salary away, like some candidates would.
I think the point is Ronnie, that
it's a yes, no.
Nobody in this room appreciates, myself included, the amount of work that a proper, hard-working MP puts in for the people of his constituency.
Let's move on with a round of applause into the final section of the discussion here taking place at Rotherham. We're discussing all the issues with the by-election. With 9 of the 11 candidates, 2 candidates have withdrawn from this conversation. But we proceed, and I'd like to put to the candidates here, and maybe to the members of the audience as well, the question about how far it matters whether your MP is a local person or not. We've already heard this question kind of bubbling up underneath with various people offering their local Rotherham connections. Does it matter that the person who becomes MP for Rotherham on Friday knows the first thing about Rotherham? Would it be better if they came from Rotherham and had some track record of knowing the story of what's happened in Rotherham? Does it matter? And I'm going to ask it all round the table. I'm going to start, Clint Bristow, with you from the English Defence League. What's your Rotherham connection, and does it matter if you've got one?
Yeah, I do think it's vital that the new MP does come from the Rotherham area. Living 15 miles away, I wouldn't say I was from Rotherham, but 15 miles, it's only a stone throw away. Local connections to Rotherham, I've got a lot of good friends around Rotherham. The Rotherham community talks to me on a daily basis. I've been in and out of Rotherham for the last probably 13, 14 months now. Looking into these Muslim grooming gangs, and I'll continue looking into these, and I'll continue speaking on behalf of the people of Rotherham.
Michael Beckett for the Lib Dems. Does it matter whether the person's local or not?
I think you're looking for someone with the best skill set, and having been a Citizens Advice Bureau manager and worked in the NHS, I think that is a good skill set for having met real people and had real life experience.
But would it help to know the first thing about Rotherham? Would know what the church is called, for instance, or what the theatre's called, or who lives here? Would it help to know those things?
Yes, I think it would help. The more
do you feel you know them?
Well, I have some experience of Rotherham. I've been here quite a lot, and I like Rotherham. I'm sure other people like Rotherham too, but I think it's also about the skills of the individual and whether that person has got the skills to do the job.
David Wildgoose, does it matter where people come from?
Yeah, I do think it matters, actually. I'm Rotherham born and bred, married a Rotherham girl, and I've got a history of actually campaigning in Rotherham for Rotherham. So, yes, I do think it matters, because we're the ones who continue to fight here and continue to campaign for Rotherham.
Simon Copley, The Independent.
I think it matters because the closer the MP is to the constituency, the more he understands people. I live in Rotherham. I'm married to a girl who was born in Rotherham. I've got connections in Rotherham, and I work in Rotherham.
Paul Dixon's The Independent. Does it matter?
I think it's an advantage, but I think it's an advantage that can be overcome. I've lived in many different places throughout my time, and I've integrated extremely well wherever I've been. The issues that actually face people locally will come up to a head anyway, and over a short period of time you should be able to come up to speed on what exactly.
Marlene Guest, BNP candidate. Does it matter that you come from Rotherham?
Oh yes, it does. I was born and bred here, and I love this little town. It's my town, and that's why I want to come out and fight for it, because I've seen what it's descended into. And it really does matter, because you know the problems, you know what's going on in the town, you know what you've got to push. And I think it's vitally important that you are.
Jane Collins is the UKIP candidate. Does it matter whether the new MP comes from Rotherham or not?
Well, Dennis McShane's had property here and lived here for a lot of years, and it didn't seem to matter to him. But my issue is you've got to have somebody that's going to represent the people, and they've got the guts to represent the people, and will stand up for Rotherham. You've got to vote for the character, for the person, for the somebody that can do the job, not where they live.
Yes, and do you know Rotherham well? I mean,
Well, listen, I'm born and bred Yorkshire girl. My dad was a miner, my granddad was a miner, from the Barnsley area. And no, I wouldn't be able to tell you, this street and that house number, but I know the people, and I know the community, and I know what it takes to put things right.
Simon Wilson for the Conservatives. Does it matter that you don't come from here and don't know much about it?
Well, I was born up the road in Wakefield, Ronnie. I know a reasonable amount about Rotherham, not as much as I will do when I'm its MP, but what matters is what the MP will do for the people that he represents, he or she represents.
Yvonne Ridley is Respect candidate. Does it matter whether you come from Rotherham or not?
I don't think it matters to the people of Rotherham. They want somebody who can deliver for them. But I do come from an area where coal and steel were vitally important. I understand the concerns of the people in Rotherham. I'm a northerner. I said before, I've got coal dust coursing through my veins. I've been a trade unionist for more than 3 decades and a socialist. And Rotherham people are more interested in who will be an honest voice for them after being let down by the last Labour MP.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to move into the kind of closing minutes of our meeting here, and it's been very interesting. I think we've all learned something, and I wish some people were here taking part in the conversation. 9 out of the 11 candidates have been here taking part. It's been a somewhat bad-tempered meeting tonight, and James, a bad-tempered by-election, would you say?
It's been an interesting by-election. I wonder how many people will turn out and vote in this election. Obviously, we had very low turnout in the police commissioner election that we had just last week, and I wonder whether the Dennis McShane effect and people telling us today that they're kind of sick of politicians, whether that will have an effect on people voting on Thursday.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to play a little game with me. I'm going to ask you, if you couldn't vote for yourself, maybe you're not a Rotherham citizen, so you can't, who would you vote for? Simon Wilson, you're Conservative. You've got 8 other candidates. The Labour candidate's not here, and nor is the Trade Unionists and Socialists Against the Cuts candidate. You've got a choice. Which one would you vote for?
I have to say, Roni, if you couldn't vote for me, I wouldn't vote for any of them.
I know, but that's such an un-Rotherhamy sort of, it's a sporting town, this one. Have a go. Who's the person nearest to your views? From what you've heard tonight?
From what I've heard tonight, Roni, none of them are particularly close to my views.
Who's the worst, then?
I'm not going to answer that.
Oh, what? OK, I can't. I think that's ridiculous, if I may say so. Yvonne Ridley, who do you think would get your vote if you could vote and you didn't vote for yourself?
Well, it's very difficult because I haven't been focusing on what the other candidates have been saying. I've been running my own campaign.
Well, you've heard them tonight.
And I've been listening to the people of Rotherham, and they want respect in many different ways other than the party.
Yeah, but you've been listening to them tonight. I mean, isn't the one that you think, I'm never going to vote for him, I wouldn't like voting for her, but he's near what I'm saying? Or...
I'm impressed by Paul Dixon, and I think he should come over and join Respect.
UKIP candidate Jane Collins, who would you vote for if it's not for yourself?
I think I'd vote for, and I just want to make sure that I get his name right. I would think I'd vote for the Mr. Copley over there. I think he seems very genuine, a very kind-hearted man.
There was a rather wonderful moment there. Paul Dixon took advantage of it. In fact, you would not believe this if you're listening to this on the radio, but they're going and sitting on each other's knees now with great affection as the parties form new coalitions here at Rotherham as we come towards the end of this discussion about the by-election. Molly, who would you vote for if it wasn't for yourself? Molly Guest.
Well, I've always tried to be an honest politician, and I'd vote for UKIP because I think their lines run very similar to ours.
Clint Bristow, you're the independent. You're the English Defence League independent. Who would you vote for here?
Oh, the candidates left. Not one of them is going to speak up for the people of Rotherham. But if I had to choose one, probably English Democrats.
Thank you. And the Liberal Democrat position, Michael Becker.
I'd probably for one of the independents, probably either Simon or Paul, but I'm not quite sure which.
Because you can't tell the difference, or you're not sure who you want on your knee?
Well, I'd rather have single transferable vote where I can put preferences. But having said that, I would probably go for Simon. There you go.
Sarah Champion can't vote in this one because she's not been here through this event. David Wildgoose, English Democrats. Who would you vote for if you couldn't vote for yourself?
Well, I certainly wouldn't vote for any of the main parties because they're the ones who have let us down so badly. So I would probably also vote for one of the independent candidates. I'm a bit dodgy, though. You might want to try and kiss me, though, so I better say not.
And are you, as a political party, David Wildgoose, are you opposed as a political party to men kissing men?
No, I'm not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Do the English Democrats not have a view on it?
Actually, it was meant as a joke, but
I'm not joking.
Actually, we don't have a view. Actually, we actually
You're against gay marriage, though, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
I thought you were.
Hold on, if I may, because this election is for me. I am in favour of. Perfectly in favour of gay men and gay women getting involved in civil partnerships, and I've written in the past supporting that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Simon Copley, who would you vote for if you couldn't vote for yourself?
Well, I feel really mean not voting for Jane Collins now. Should do good unto those who do good to you, but I would vote for Paul Dixon because I can't see anything wrong with his policies.
Paul Dixon, who would you vote for?
Well, the initial question was who would I vote for who's here tonight, and obviously I can't vote for the Labour Party because they haven't bothered their ass to turn up.
Yeah.
There's quite a few people throwing money at me here, so I'm in a bit of a mix, but I think Simon and I actually have similar policies, and Simon is a local person, so I would probably back Simon as well.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a most interesting meeting, and it's had some very unexpected moments, not the least of which is that only 9 out of the 11 candidates were here for this vital meeting, and we can deduce from that what we will. Thank you very much indeed to all the candidates who are joining us. If one of you is the MP on Friday morning, congratulations, and if you're not, come back to Rotherham some other time and have another go when the next MP crashes. It's BBC Radio Sheffield reporting to you from Rotherham, this rather important by-election debate, and thank you very much indeed.
BBC Radio Sheffield.
Local